Our next keynote speaker is someone who, she has run some of the largest investment management operations on Wall Street. She has been promoting gender equality when it comes to investing now for some time. And I don't know if anyone here is a fan of The Daily Show, but she was on The Daily Show earlier this year. I'm a big fan. It was a fascinating interview, very entertaining and thought-provoking. Highly encourage you to go look at find the archive for that. But anyway, so without any further ado, please join me in welcoming Sallie Krawcheck, the CEO of Ellevest, who is going to be talking with Kat Utek from Core Innovation Capital. Ladies.
Well, wonderful to spend Monday morning with you.
Likewise.
You're a Fintech luminary. You started your career as an equity analyst, and then were promoted to be the director of equity research, and then the chairman and CEO of Sanford Bernstein, and then after that, CEO of Smith Barney, CFO of Citi, CEO of Citi Wealth Management, CEO of Merrill Lynch Wealth Management.
Yeah.
Why a startup? I mean, that's an amazing career. Why find the startup?
Well, sometimes I say I'm trying to have every professional experience it's possible to have, and there is that. But a lot of it really has to do with the mission of Ellevest, which is at its core to get more money in the hands of women. Mm-hmm. I think as we look at the country right now and we think about ways to grow the economy, ways for healthier markets, ways to make families stronger, ways to get rid of this massive inequality that we're experiencing, a direct way to do a ton of positive good is to get more money in the hands of women. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people are working on the gender pay gap, which is stubbornly persistent. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are working on getting more women on boards and promoting women, et cetera. But very few people have been working very seriously on a very direct means that doesn't take much time of helping women earn more money over the course of their lives, which is investing. Mm-hmm. And as we look at it, women today are underinvested. We tend to keep about 71 cents out of every dollar in cash, which cost women hundreds of thousands, some women millions of dollars over the course of their lives. It just doesn't take that much time to do. So when I talk to women, I say, we're already doing the hard stuff. We're already going into work every day. We're already getting the projects turned in. And taking that extra bit of time that a digital-first investing platform takes to earn more money over their lives is not too much to ask.
And just given all your professional experiences, why do you think women have been ignored and left behind?
Well, let's start with the fact that the industry has approached it as though it were women's fault that they're not investing. You need to be less risk averse, to be more risk averse. You need more financial education. Women get the message, you're not that good at investing, you're not that good at math. None of these things are true. But we as an industry have forever talked to women about how they need to conform to how the business is done today. And you don't have to look around too much to see that in an industry in which financial advisors are 86% male and mutual fund managers are 90% male and hedge fund managers are 95% male, that in fact what we did was we built an industry that does a better job for guys. That historically has been about alpha and beta and outperforming and beating the market and watching CNBC, which is ESPN, in which the industry symbol is a bull, which is a phallic symbol. Yeah. And women looked at this and said, you know what, I don't have the time and I don't have the interest, quite frankly.
So how are you doing it differently?
Well, what we started with is we approached it completely differently from how everybody else did, which is all the big banks, including Citi when I was there, sort of saw it as a marketing problem. We just need to market to them differently. We just need to make them listen. And what we said is, what if the underlying product also isn't working for them? And that we took 2 years, thousands of hours of research with women, not just a focus group where, whoever says something first, everybody follows them, but really going deep on what they're looking for. And what we found is that the craft of investing is just not particularly interesting to them. That picking this mutual fund, winning, even having more money are not motivating. What is motivating are reaching their particular goals, right? Whether it's to buy a house in 5 years, retire well at the age of 65, that it's a much more goals-oriented undertaking as opposed to a monetary undertaking.
Got it. And so now you've been increasing your AUM. You've passed over $100 million.
Over 200, $250 million.
Really?
We're going fast, Kat.
All right. I love it. And you just did your own round.
Yes.
And so, on one end, they're talking about female investors and female retail investors. How did you find just being a female founder going to invest?
Super fun.
Yeah.
No, it's tough. Raising money is hard. We just announced it a week and a half ago. And I said, in contrast to sort of the popular perception of, oh my gosh, we were oversubscribed, people threw money at us, it was so easy. We did end up oversubscribed, but you feel like you sort of run a marathon, you break your knee, you throw up on the side of the road, right? It's a big, big undertaking, and it's not particularly fun. And we know it's broken, because businesses that are run by women tend to have superior returns, and yet women CEOs get something like 2% of venture funding. Mm-hmm. There's no planet on which that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And so what are the skeptics saying to you? So I love what you're doing. I know there's a lot of people in the room. And what do you tell them?
Oh my God, how many skeptics can there be? In fact, including when we launched, the women themselves. So, you and I were saying earlier, if you had actually sat me down and said, are you sure you really want to do this? Because here's what you're going to do, Sallie. You're going to pull together a team, from scratch. You're going to pull together a business from scratch. You're going to go out to women and say, we want you to change your behavior. We want you to take on more risk. We want you to turn cash into diversified investment portfolios. We want you to do it with a company you've never heard of before, with people you've really never heard of before, with no track record. You can't talk to anybody. You got to send in your money online. And when you show this to your dad, who a lot of women go to if they don't have a financial advisor, he's going to say, this is a new way of investing. It sounds dumb, right? And at the same time, we as a society have been socialized that for women means inferior. So when we launched, we had a double digit, like 40% of women, when we launched on Facebook, and we were out there, Invest Like a Woman, said this is sexist. Because we had been brought up that if it's for women, you pink it, you shrink it, it's dumbed down. If it's financial services, it's remedial financial education, or don't buy the latte. Right? And that we were plunging ourselves into that. What was your question?
Yeah, so I heard there were a bunch of skeptics. But you just answered them. If there were any skeptics, you just got it done.
Then we go out to raise money, and what I keep getting is, maybe, but aren't women a niche market? I'm like, yeah, we control $7 trillion of investable assets, most of it's in cash. And then even in this round, when people come back, they say, we took it, we're not going to invest. Well, that's interesting. Why? One, we think you're a marketing ploy. Mm-hmm. And somehow again, the way we've been socialized, if it's for women and by women, it can't be hardcore tech. It's a marketing thing. And number two, what we would hear is, well, we're nervous a competitor will get in. Yeah. And I'm like, how many fintech and financial services and investment services firms are there who have a majority of male clients that are still multi-billion-dollar companies? But again, this is how we've been socialized. And so we got the skeptics coming at us every minute. The great thing is we also have a bunch of women clients coming at us every minute.
And so what are they saying to you? And are they building a community? And what are they doing that's just embracing this and surprising you?
Well, they're investing. Is the first thing, and they're really engaging with us. We just learned, and I don't want to by any means put down marketing, because it's important if you're doing something with a product and nobody knows it doesn't count. Mm-hmm. And we recently learned that of the something like 60 wealth management and fintech companies that are on Instagram, we have 80% of the likes and shares. Mm-hmm. And so what we've built is a 1 million strong social community. Mm-hmm. Between my following, Ellevest following, the largest that's out there. Yeah. So we're truly engaging women in the topic, as a first step, and then engaging her as a user in the next step, and as a client as a third step. And the world's wide open for it. This topic of women and money, when so much of the advice has been of the don't buy the latte variety, for us to come out and say, all right, real talk, let's talk about, first of all, the cost of a career break. Women take them to a much greater degree than men do. If you make $85,000 a year, you think it costs you, $170,000 to take a 2-year career break. It costs $1.7 million. Let's talk about that and talk about then what investing can do to help you make that up. Having those kind of real conversations and back and forth, as opposed to the, gloss it over, we're all gals together, I think is really engaging people.
And what type of investors are these? Are they just like your typical, or are they stay-at-home moms? Are they professional women? Are they in finance? Like, who are your
Well, they tend to be, so the great part is the thing that unites them is they tend to be women and some great men who have agency over their money. And so that can typically mean that they earn their own money, they're a professional woman, but what's wonderful, people always want to know, what's her age? Okay, fine, on average she's 34, but she's 18 to 86. She's in 50 states, right? And she tends to start small, test it out. Let me put in 1% of every paycheck, 2%. But then the amazing thing about these asset-based businesses, we were talking before, it takes a while to cover your expenses, but the attrition rate amongst our women is super low from the beginning. And I know a number of the digital-first platforms, as they were finding their product market fit, had high levels of attrition. We've got sub 5% annualized attrition because these women are saying this product makes sense for me.
Yeah, no, that's great. So look in the future, and your AUM is obviously growing month over month quicker than it has ever grown before. If you do this, and what was your ultimate vision, and how does the country change if you have females actually investing?
Well, so we're out for world domination, obviously. But look, if you want to go big picture, we sit here today in this Me Too Time's Up moment, when we women have not made the progress either in this industry or traditional industry that every single one of us would have bet we would have made when we graduated college. And for all the talk about the advancement of women, the number of female CEOs of Fortune 500 companies has gone down by 25% this year. It's a very small number, which is sort of the problem. That the gender pay gap, is decades away from closing for white women, 100 plus years for black women, and 200 plus years for Latina women. So we really have not made the progress that we wanted to make. As mentioned, a way to make this up, a way to close some of this gap is by women investing, not picking this sexy stock or this one or outperforming the market, but simply diversified investment portfolios through the course of their lives. And every single one of us here understands that money in a capitalist society is power. And every single one of us implicitly understands that those women who were victims of some of those sexual harassers out there would not have been the victims if they'd been on an equal playing field financially. That, nobody would have sat around and watched Charlie Rose walk around in a half-open bathrobe if they didn't have to, right? And a way you don't have to is by having the money to be able to say, take this job and shove it, right? Or let me get out of here and start my own business. There go the ladies.
Yeah.
And you too,
and some great guys.
But we are getting to the fundamental core of the balance of power. And the truth is, I can't think of anything bad that happens when women have more money.
Yeah. And so what happens now? Do you expect, right, there's a lot of women, you don't have to have the whole female investing. Do you expect the banks actually to look and start saying, hey, maybe there's something here. Maybe we should have, different ways of investing for different people. Do you expect there to be change, or do you think that's still years away?
What's fun to see is people are copying our language, copying our approach, which is nice to see, because with a market that has not worked, for the industry, hasn't reached its potential. While when you hear people, taking your stuff and using your words and using, trying to copy you. At first you're like, hold on, wait a second, get your own idea. But it is, of course, the sincerest form of flattery. And we aren't, crazy enough to think, okay, there can only be one of us in the market. In fact, having, many folks in there talking about it helps to expand it, and we can't solve the whole issue ourselves.
Yeah, so let's say one of your former employers, Citi, comes to try buy you 5 years from now. Would you ever be the CEO of Citi? Like, are you ever tempted to go back?
Be the CEO of Citi?
Yeah,
I was the CFO of Citi.
Yeah, are you ever tempted to go back into like the big bank life?
Those jobs are hard.
Yeah.
And having been the CFO of the company and run large, complex businesses, you just watch the people go into them age incredibly rapidly with everything that comes at them. That said, I have said running a startup is harder than running Merrill Lynch because they have money and they have positive cash flow and they have earnings and every once in a while as a startup when you have a bad week, we had a bad week when you were running Merrill. Oh man, we only earned several, tens of millions of dollars or hundreds of millions. Darn it! Here when it's a startup, as you know, you sort of double lose because you lose money and you don't do what you need to do to raise the next round. Yeah. So look, everything's hard. If it were easy, everybody would be doing all of it.
Well, that's why I started. I was like, you had this amazing career. Why put yourself under such a great challenge?
Because of what I talked about, which is the mission. I mean, think about it for a second. We could probably agree that you perhaps need to, I'm hedging aggressively here, be a woman in order to see this market, right? And perhaps even to build something for this market. And we could argue you don't have to be, but we have decades of experience with the traditional industry that they didn't. Yeah. And so you probably, in order to crack this thing open, have to intuitively understand this market. You then look at the percent of women in financial services and wealth management, and I mentioned the numbers below. It's very small. And when you get to the senior levels, it's very, very small. And then you look at, or women who are coming out of tech, and it's very small. And then you look at the women who are able to raise the capital that's needed to get this business off the ground, because as you know, Kat, it takes upfront capital because you got to put a compliance infrastructure in place, you got to put a marketing program in place, you need client served, you got to build the product, you got to make mistakes. And so as I looked at this, I said, when I really saw the opportunity and saw how it had been approached in a way that didn't maximize it before, I looked and I said, I think it's got to be me. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure someone else could, but they aren't. And when you look at that Venn diagram of finance, tech, able to raise the money, crazy enough to do it, I'm like, it's me. And so if I then saw this opportunity to help, now tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of women and their families be better off and build a valuable company while doing it. And I was like, I'm going to do a portfolio of boards and sit on the beach. How could I live with myself? I think you get one life. And pretty much you need to run as fast as you can from birth till death. And then I think it's over after that.
Yeah. Who knows?
Who knows?
We don't have enough time to cover that.
I'm willing to place some bets, like being an entrepreneur, but placing that life after death bet is not one for me.
All right, so I assume we have to wrap up, but let's do a quick lightning round. Okay. Long and short. So I'll give some topics, and you tell me if you're long or short. Okay. Okay. All right. Challenger banks.
Long.
All right. Crypto.
Short.
Fintech.
Long.
Early stage tech valuations.
I'll be long.
Yeah. Late stage tech valuations.
Yeah, I'll be short.
All right. SoftBank.
Long.
Oh, all right. That's maybe where you get your next money from. And last but not least, gender equality in the U.S.
Well, how do you mean that? Am I for gender equality in the U.S.? Yes, I am.
You think it'll happen?
Over what period of time?
Yeah. What period of time do you think it will happen?
Well, look, I think in order for it to happen, we all have to recognize we need to do something different. that whatever we're doing now, whatever you're doing at your company that hasn't worked, like your gender diversity group or your, Rooney Rule or having powerful women come in to speak to them, has not worked.
Yeah.
And so to my mind, the only thing that I see that works is for two things. One, the senior level, the CEOs just like, we are doing this, no more excuses. Or for big companies, increasingly you're seeing millennial women who are banding together and saying, we're just not waiting anymore. And we're gonna engage with management and demand change. Those are the only two things that work. The rest of it has not worked.
Yeah, I agree. The time's now. We're almost there.
Time's now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Kat.
much. You could have been in
Thank you.
retirement and you're doing this.